Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Perth East Council this 18th day of March. I'd like to call our meeting to order. If everyone could please bow their head for a moment of reflection. Thank you. We do have an addition or a change to our agenda, so I'll let Ashley tell you about that.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Yates. Item number 8.4.1, Council Remuneration and Expense Report. There's a revised table. The report was sent out to council members earlier today, and the revised package will be posted on the website tomorrow.
Okay, so then we have a motion that the following item be added to the meeting agenda, that item 8.4.1, Council Remuneration Expense Report, and the agenda as prepared for the March 18 meeting of Council of the Township of Perth East be approved as amended. Need a move and a seconder, moved by Jeremy, second by Amanda, all in favor? Carried. If you have pecuniary interests, you can disclose that now or as our meeting goes along. Under our consent agenda items, we have 11 items. Is there anything anyone has a question on or would like pulled? Jerry?
5.1.11, please.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, then we have a motion that items 5.1.1 to 5.1.11 is set out on the consent agenda for the March 18, 2025 regular meeting of council be received for information, with the exception of item 5.1.11, which shall be introduced separately, and the minutes of March 4, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted. Moved by Jerry, second by Andrew. All in favor? Carried. Okay, Jerry, what would you like us to do with 11?
Yeah, so this letter here was received from the Perth County OPP Police Board, asking us, and we brought it up, I believe, a couple of meetings ago after the meeting I attended, that the very last couple of paragraphs, I think it's the second last paragraph in the letter, they would like just to encourage us to declare intimate partner violence an epidemic in our region, and consider developing an action plan, whether that's through our community safety plan that's getting updated. They're asking that perhaps they come and do their presentation. It was quite a very informative presentation that they did to the board, group that did it. And there is some training as well that perhaps staff could look at possibly doing. I know we did it as board members. It was quite interesting, so I'm not sure if staff has any input on this or how we can proceed.
Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak briefly as it relates to the community safety and well-being plan. Councilor Smith, one of the highlighted items of there's a working group actually that met today discussing this particular issue and how to build it into part of the community safety and well-being plan. So there is some attention being addressed there, but I certainly don't want to take away from the other recommendations from the letter, but I just wanted to highlight that for council that it's considered as part of the update safety.
Okay,
And perhaps that's all that's needed for the township and its surrounding communities, is that plan highlighting it. But again, the presentation, if we can maybe ask them to come at some point and do that to the front.
Yeah, I think we can, there's going to be some follow-up out of the community safety and well-being, and some of that training, I think, will be part of that. But I've also had some conversations with the OPP recently about other training opportunities. So yeah, we can certainly ask about this piece as well.
Okay, so then what would you like to do with this?
We just received information and staff's already got it in the works, I assume.
Okay. Okay. We have a seconder for that. Second by Hugh. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we're moving to presentations. We have no public presentations. We have no other presentations. We have no delegations. We do have 3 public meetings, so we will go to that. So I declare this public meeting to be open This public meeting is being held to consider a proposed zoning bylaw amendment affecting property currently owned by Gospel Echoes Team, care of Gary Martin. Legal address of Concession 7, South Part, Lot 16, 4082, Perth Line 72. This meeting is an opportunity for the township to advise the public of the purpose and intent of the amendment and receive their input prior to considering adoption of an implementing bylaw. If a bylaw is adopted to implement the zoning amendment, a notice of passing will be forwarded by prepaid first-class mail to various agencies of interest and others who have requested notice. An appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal objecting to the adoption of the bylaw may be e-filed via the OLT e-file service no later than the date stated on the notice. Any persons attending this meeting who wishes to receive written notice of a bylaw passed to implement the amendment is asked to give their name and mailing address to the clerk following this meeting. No written notice except as previously noted will be given unless requested in writing following the meeting. All persons attending this meeting will be given an opportunity to be heard or make a presentation. I will now call on our planner, Jeff Bannon, to present the planning report and recommendations. So welcome, Jeff.
So the subject lands are located on the north side of Perth Line 72 between Park Street and Rutherford Street. They're municipally known as 4082 Perth Line 72, and they're in Millbank. The application proposes to rezone the property from a special highway commercial zone C3-3 to a Hamlet Village residential zone HVR-54 to facilitate the construction of a single detached dwelling. The site-specific relief that is being requested is to reduce the minimum rear yard depth from 7.5 meters to 5 meters and to reduce the minimum lot frontage from 27.5 meters down to 10.06 meters. Subject lands have recently undergone a consent application to sever the lands from the existing thrift store and the accessory residential unit on the retained lands. The severed lands will continue to have they will require a new private well and a septic to be installed at the time of the building permit, and the subject lands are accessible from that road at Perth Line 72. Property is designated as village in the County of Perth official plan, zoned as highway commercial C3-3. That zone currently permits retail stores, personal service shops, financial institutions, offices, clinics, carpentry workshop, and a residential unit. The retained lands will maintain the zoning of the current thrift store and the residential land uses. And the application is proposing to rezone those lands to reduce the minimum rear yard requirement and minimum lot frontage on the severed lands. The minimum lot frontage requirement generally ensures that there is adequate space for the dwelling, access, parking, separation from the neighboring properties, and that the proposed lot to be severed provides ample space for amenities and to accommodate the dwelling, landscaping, and parking spaces. Public notice was provided to neighboring property owners on February 26th. No comments or concerns were received from the public or agencies prior to the completion of the report. One letter has been received last week from the adjacent property owner. They have expressed some concerns regarding drainage of the property. There is a site plan agreement already registered on title for the existing land uses, and there's securities and a deposit that are being held by the township to ensure that water does not adversely impact the adjacent property owners. So it sounds like there are some issues out there. We are holding securities and a deposit that we can use to rectify those issues if the applicant doesn't take care of the problems themselves. So they will be made aware of the current situation and the concerns of the adjacent property owners. They'll be provided with ample time to rectify that drainage problems that are occurring from recent changes to the property. And if not, then the township has the ability to go back and complete those works themselves. So in light of the foregoing, planning staff are in support of the zoning bylaw amendment. We are of the opinion that the development proposal to rezone the lands to facilitate the construction of the single detached dwelling is consistent with the policies of the provincial planning statement and the county official plan, and that it represents good planning. And I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in opposition of the application? Anyone wishing to speak against? Seeing no one, is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in support of the application other than the applicant or the applicant's agent? Are you the applicant? No? Okay, sorry. If you'd like to come up to the desk here, please, and give us your name and where you live.
I'm Lowell Bean, and I live just outside of town of Milverton here on Mill Street. And it was recommended that we would read a letter off that we sent to the township so that everyone's on the same page. So I'll do that right now. We are not opposed to this amendment in principle. However, we do have concerns about the surface water issue that has been ongoing. Historically, there had been an open ditch / swale along the length of the east side of John Street, now Park Street, that directed the surface water from the 4082 property down to the ditch along Perth Line 72. Prior to the present owner of 4082, there was a relatively narrow driveway with a culvert under it that crossed this open ditch / swale to their building. The present owner significantly widened this driveway over the last number of years and in effect blocked the ditch to the north. Since then, the property to the north was also filled in, the ditch to the north was also filled in level. This caused the surface water from the north end of the 4082 property to be directed over Park Street and onto the Morningstar School 4088 property. During heavy rainfalls or a spring thaw, there can be a significant amount of water flowing in a small stream to the east of the school building. This side of the school is used for parking as well as our main entrance area, so it impacts the pedestrian area as well as the students' playground area, making it wet and sloppy. There have been various conversations with the property owners about this, and we have been assured that this issue will be rectified. However, to date, it has not been. The Township of Perth East employees have been involved in some of these discussions on site and are fully aware of the issue. This issue was also brought up in our letter to the Township regarding the sale of Park Street. See point number 1 on attached April 23 document. Our concern is that this surface water drainage problem will be permanently rectified along with the site changes that are being proposed. Directing all surface water towards and into the Perth Line 72 ditch without crossing a neighboring property would seem like a reasonable solution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bean. Is there any questions from council, Mr. Bean? If not, then we will move. Here we go. Sorry. Okay, does the applicant or the applicant's agent wish to address any questions or comments? About the drainage? I think Jeff did address it, that the township is going to make sure that the flooding is looked after. Does the applicant or the applicant's agent wish to make a presentation or speak? Please come to the podium and tell us your name and your address.
I'm, excuse me, Gary Martin. I'm with Gospel Echoes and I'm the applicant. So to address that issue, we have J.D. Barnes doing a survey and working on a grading plan. We're fully aware of the problem, and when we get into the excavating, we definitely will pay attention to that. So I think it's going to be all part of the grading plan, so I think it'll be okay.
Okay. Are there any questions from members of council? Council will consider a resolution regarding the plan and report recommendation following the conclusion of the public meeting. Bylaw 219-2024 to implement the approval of the zoning application will be considered later within the council agenda. Okay, now we'll move to our second public meeting, and it's a zoning bylaw amendment by Pierre Chauvin, MHBC Planning, on behalf of Road Farm Services. So this public meeting is being held to consider proposed zoning bylaw amendment affecting property currently owned by MHBC Planning / Road Farm Services, Inc., Concession 7, Part Lot 4, 4150, line 42. I'm gonna skip all the preamble because it's exactly the same as the one I just read, and we're gonna jump right to Jeff and his report. So Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So the property is located on the north side of line 42 between Road 122 and Perth line 119. It is municipally known as 4150 line 42. Property is designated as agriculture in the County of Perth official plan and is zoned as natural resources environment zone 2. The proposed amendment to the Perth East zoning bylaws to rezone the lands from that NRA2 zone to a special agricultural, commercial, industrial zone, ACM, with special use provision to permit farm equipment repair establishment as an agricultural related use. The subject application will facilitate the construction of a 1,000 square meter shop with 3 repair bays on a non-tree portion of the property northeast of the existing residence. The applicant has indicated that the proposed farm service business will provide agricultural, construction, and heavy diesel equipment repair services to local farms and businesses. They intend to relocate their existing business from 4505 line 46 to the subject lands. The provincial planning statement protects prime agricultural areas for long-term agricultural use. The PPS states that natural features in areas shall be protected for the long-term use, and the development and site alteration shall not be permitted unless it's been demonstrated that there are no negative impacts on the natural features or on their ecological functions. County of Perth official plan states that farm-related commercial and industrial uses that offer services that are predominantly for the agricultural community are allowed, and they're necessary to be in close proximity to farm operations. So they'd be permitted in the agricultural designation subject to meeting certain criteria. Official plan also protects woodlands that are 1 hectare in size or more in size, and also protects the clearing of smaller woodlots in accordance with the provisions of the County of Perth's Forest Conservation Bylaw. An environmental impact study may be required in order to access the impact of that development. Due to the proximity of the proposed business to the existing woodlot adjacent to the subject lands, the applicant has submitted an environmental impact study in support of the development. That study is currently being peer reviewed. County of Perth Council has recently adopted official plan 2024. That official plan is currently being reviewed by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and the subject lands are to be designated as natural resource environment and agricultural in the proposed official plan. Public notice was provided to the neighboring property owners on February 3rd of 2025 in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. One neighboring property owner has submitted a response that in support of the application. The zoning bylaw amendment has been circulated for comments, and that peer review on the EIS is proceeding. Planning staff will be providing full comments from the agency circulation and the peer review with the planning report that includes a recommendation on the zoning bylaw amendment at a future Township of Perth East Council meeting. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in opposition of the application? Seeing no one, is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in support of the application other than the applicant or the applicant's agent? Seeing no one, does the applicant or the applicant agent wish to make a presentation or speak with respect to the application?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Pierre Chauvin with MHBC Planning. I'm here on behalf of Roth Farm Services Limited, and with me this evening are Mr. and Mrs. Roth. Some of you may know them. They do operate locally, and this is a pretty, in my opinion, a classic agricultural related type of use, and they've been providing farm services, equipment services for many years already in the community, and are simply wishing to relocate their business closer to home. They purchased this property with the intention of doing that. Their house is on the adjacent smaller lot. The location where they are proposing this facility was previously occupied by a barn, And so there's a natural clearing there already. And despite that, we recognize we're surrounded by natural heritage features, and hence the need to have do the environmental impact statement, and as well as a hydrogeological assessment has been completed. So those are both being reviewed, peer reviewed, and also reviewed by the Conservation Authority. And we certainly look forward to continue to work with staff as we move this project forward. Ultimately, with some of the details with respect to the design and specifics of the building will be carried forward through a subsequent site plan application. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from members of council? Hugh?
Yeah, looking at the amount of times that you can't work there, like not disturb vegetation or trees or animals and that kind of stuff. It looks like about the only time you can build that building is winter time. Because it looks like from about April till sometime end of September or October that there'll be something that you're not supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Through you, Madam Mayor, that is the breeding bird window for which you can't remove trees. Now you can, in theory, remove the trees, but you have to do a nesting survey to determine whether there's actually nests in the trees before you take them down. I think given where we are in the process and the subsequent site plan process we'll have to go through, we'll probably be looking at a building permit around that fall timeframe outside of that window anyhow. So I think we'll be outside of those windows and looking to hopefully start building this fall.
Just wanted to question the rock pile, that was the old barn, right? And that is some kind of mystical animal. I didn't bother looking it up, but I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, yes, I think myotes, I'm not the ecologist, but myotes were a term that was used, but yeah, some kind of critter that I'm not familiar with either, but it was determined that it's not of any significance.
Any other questions? If not, council will consider a resolution regarding the plan and report recommendation following the conclusion of the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and now our third application is by Amy Otto and Scott Patterson. And so I will read this one. This public meeting is being held to consider a proposed zoning bylaw amendment affecting property currently owned by Patterson Planning Consultants / Amy Otto, Southeast Tote Concession 5, Part Lot 21, Plan 329, Lot H, 3584 Perth Road 107. And once again, the preamble is all the same, so we're jumping right down to Jeff for the report. So Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So the property is located on the west side of Perth Road 107 between line 29 and Dietrich Road in Sebastopol, and is municipally known as 3584 Road 107. The application proposes to rezone the subject lands from a Hamlet Village residential zone to a Hamlet Village residential zone with a special revision number 55 to allow for single detached dwellings with minimum lot area of 680 square meters, a minimum lot frontage of 16.9 meters, and the provisions also will facilitate the development of 4 single detached dwellings. Property is designated as Hamlet in the County of Perth official plan and is zoned as HVR. The subject lands contain an existing single detached dwelling with an accessory building. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing structures. And the consent applications have also been submitted, which you'll hear about shortly, which are intended to sever the lands to create 3 lots and to retain a lot for residential purposes. Applicant has submitted an archaeological assessment in support of the application, and that assessment stated that no artifacts or other archaeological resources were observed when assessing the area for the proposed rezoning. They've submitted a geotechnical study and a hydrogeological study in support of the applications. The geotechnical study has provided recommendations on the design and the construction of the subject lands and the design of the private septic systems. The hydrogeological study has stated that the development of the property would not be expected to impact the private water supply in the area, and that an enhanced tertiary system is acceptable to support the severances. Public notice was provided to the neighboring property owners on February 3rd. Hydro One and the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority have no concerns or objections. Oxford County has noted that there is sufficient capacity for a water connection to be provided for the lots that are to be created, and that an official plan amendment will be required from Oxford County in order to allow for those water connections. Perth County Public Works have noted that the severances are not expected to adversely affect traffic operations in the area, and the traffic impact study is not required. 3 neighboring property owners have expressed concerns with the proposed development. The neighbors are concerned with traffic and safety, impacts of additional costs to extend public services, septic system capacity, increases to property taxes, parking overflow, and snow removal. Respondents have expressed those concerns with additional traffic that is being generated from the additional single attached dwellings and the speed of the traffic and the resulting accidents that are on Perth Road 107. The subject lands are located over 100 meters from the intersection of Perth Road 107 and line 29. The lands are located within the settlement area, and as mentioned, County Perth Public Works have stated that the trips that are being generated from the development of these severance applications are not expected to impact the traffic operations in the area, and the traffic impact study would not be required. Concern has been expressed that the residents would be expected to pay for costs of extending services to the subject lands, that there would be an increase in the property taxes. Extension of the proposed water service and the required amendment to the official plan for the county of Oxford are both to be paid by the developer and not by the existing residents in Sebastopol. The assessment of the property values is completed by the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation for every individual property in the township of Perth East. The proposed development does not incorporate changes to individual properties in the neighborhood and would not directly increase taxes on the adjacent lands. Respondents have also questioned whether the overflow of parking will be how it will be located and how snow removal will be completed. Township of Perth East provides for snow removal along the frontage of the subject lands. The density of each development is not expected to create additional concerns with snow removal, and each residential lot will be required to provide the minimum parking spaces for those single detached dwellings on their lands. In regards to sizing of the private sanitary servicing systems, that hydrogeological study has been submitted by the applicant, and it is concluded that the development of the property is not expected to impact the private water supply in the area, and that the enhanced tertiary system, which typically utilizes a smaller footprint, is acceptable to support the proposed severances. The proposed development is consistent with the policies of the provincial planning statement, as the development will allow for slight intensification with lot sizes that are compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Oxford County has stated that there's sufficient capacity within the water system to service 4 additional residential lots. Planning staff have recommended a condition to ensure that the applicant receives approval for the official plan amendment from the County of Oxford in order to allow the connection to their water supply system, which also results in an efficient use and land of the resources that optimize existing and planned infrastructure and public services in the area. Development contributes to providing an appropriate range and mix of housing options to meet the long-term needs of residents in the community. The general intent of the official plan supports the proposed development, and it provides for a compact form of development that is non-farm development. The lots are able to be accommodated by the tertiary septic system, and if water services are extended to the property, proposed lot sizes will be appropriate for the development of additional 3 residential lots. The reduction in the lot sizes is appropriate for the proposed servicing that is being contemplated. The development is considered to be infilling in the settlement area, and the lot sizes, frontage, and depth is consistent. The creation of the residential lots will occur through the consent process, and the scale of the development is supported by the servicing that is being provided. Lots of frontage on a public street, and the proposed lots will meet other zoning bylaw requirements. And as a result, the proposed lot fabric that represents lot sizes that are consistent in the area is supportable by the County of Perth official plan policies and planning staff are recommending approval of the rezoning application.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in opposition of the application? Seeing no one, is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in support of the application other than the applicant or the applicant's agent? Seeing no one, does the applicant or the applicant agent wish to make a presentation or speak? Scott's here with us tonight.
Good evening, Council. Scott Patterson from Patterson Planning Consultants, representing the property owner. The application was submitted on the basis of the current owner at the time being Amy Otto. Just for council's reference, the property has been sold to 2274581 Ontario Inc., which is Apple Home Builders. I do have a presentation this evening. However, having listened to Jeff and what he said, I think it would be complete duplication of what he's already told you. So I'm happy just to answer any questions this evening if council has any with regard to the application. I would note that I am here in support of the staff report and recommendation for the zoning bylaw amendment, and I have reviewed the conditions of the consent, which you'll be hearing about shortly. Here in full support of the staff report and recommendation regarding the consent as well, and the conditions that are intended to be imposed. If any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from members of council? You?
Yeah, there was no wise use of management of resources in protecting public health and safety matters paperwork with the application. Is that something you can choose not to do, or is there a reason?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not sure what you're referencing.
In our report, there was page 195. There was a sentence there that there are no wise use and management of resources and protecting public health and safety matters of consistency with the application.
Through the mayor, if I could answer that question. So the provincial planning statement has policies relating to allowing development in the community. So that statement is basically saying that we've reviewed those policies relating to wise use and management resources and the protection of public health and safety, and we didn't find any concerns with the policies, what's required and what's being proposed before you tonight. So it's just saying that there's no concerns with any sort of consistency with the provincial planning statement and with what's being proposed.
Okay, that's fine. And then another quick question. The lot sizes now, they're only going to be 30% of a normal lot size. Like a normal lot size is 2,250 meters square. And these are going to be 682, roughly to 692. So I don't know, by math, is that like 30% of what a full-size lot would be?
Through the mayor, if you'd like me to answer that. Yeah, so they are a significant reduction from what the zoning allows for. Now, the zoning typically would allow for development that needed full septic systems and potentially private well systems. So being that they're able to extend the water services to these properties and that they're using a tertiary septic system, they are able to reduce the footprint of those lots to a more suitable lot that you see in the settlement area with full services, because they're going to be able to provide that water service through the Oxford County, and the tertiary system uses a much smaller footprint, which allows them to reduce the size. And then those lot sizes will be comparable in size to some of the other lotting that's in that neighborhood, but they are smaller than what's typically allowed in the zoning bylaw that contemplates needing that extra lot area.
Yeah, and they'll still only be able to cover 40% of that footprint with the house.
Yeah, they haven't asked for any sort of reduction in the maximum lot size or the maximum lot coverage or the minimum landscape open space. So they're going to be able to meet those requirements, is what we've been advised.
Would you have any kind of an idea what size a house you could put on there? Any ballpark figure?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there's been no house designs done to date for the property itself. We wanted to get through this process before incurring costs for house design. I don't know the square footage that could be proposed. It'll all be dependent on the septic system sizing, the number of fixtures within the building itself, and that will determine the actual house site that can be proposed. As Mr. Bannon had noted, we're not proposing any amendments or modifications to any of the rest of the existing zoning. So all setbacks, lot coverage, building height, et cetera, would be complied with, as well as parking of 2 spaces per unit. And just for context, as Jeff had noted, your zoning bylaw requires the maximum size of 2250 square meters per lot. Many zoning bylaws that I deal with have different lot sizes depending on what servicing is available. So 2250 is the maximum when you only have no public services. Then if you had water or municipal sanitary, there'd be a different lot size. In this instance, your zoning bylaw has just one lot size. So it doesn't allow for when public water is available or public sewer. In this instance, we have submitted the necessary, I believe the necessary documentation to support the reduction in lot size. And I believe staff have reviewed that as well.
And the sewer that you, or the septic system you put in, it's a lot smaller than a normal septic system.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, the proper term is just advanced treatment, I believe now. It used to be called a tertiary septic system. It does require a smaller footprint. It's an advanced system in how it treats the septic and the effluent from that. It does require maintenance on the system itself, but it is becoming more common in these infill situations on smaller lot sizes, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor Eggets. Thanks for coming, Mr. Patterson, and speaking with us. So is it a communal mechanical filter bed system, or is it individual for each lot?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it would be individual systems.
Okay.
So one on each lot that's proposed.
Yeah, and is there it's a mechanical component, and of course, the adjacent wells, is there a plan, like you mentioned maintenance, you kind of answered my question a bit. Is there like a maintenance plan that has to be adhered to make sure any failures are captured and corrected immediately, or is that on the homeowner or the township? How does that normally work?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'll defer to your
That's
CBO.
fine.
That's
Yeah.
good.
So through you, Mayor Eggets, so each one of these tertiary systems or advanced treatments, they're called now, they have a maintenance agreement that requires sampling annually. Because I do get emails from our other treatment units occasionally in Perth East, where the person sampling no longer has an agreement in effect. And then by law, under the building code, they have to notify the CBO if they're not getting their samples anymore. So I think that maybe answers the question, but that's our assurance because each one has a maintenance agreement that has to be in place in perpetuity.
No, thank you for that information. So we talk about in the report about kind of in keeping of the character of the neighborhood. Where would be the closest density as we're proposing here tonight in the area?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I believe the closest reference to what's being developed or proposed on these lots is the lot immediately to the north, which you can see on the air photo on the screen. Something similar to that is what could be developed on these lots going forward.
Yeah, just from looking, I know these, thank you for that information. Looking at some of these overheads, it's hard to tell. That looks like maybe 3 would fit on the proposal, or looks a little, just, I know these are hard to read. Obviously, we don't have the measurements of that other lot, do we, or no?
Again, through you, Madam Mayor, I don't know the context of the development of that existing house or how it was done. For this particular project, I can readily say that my client was looking for more lots. We started at 5, and then we started going through the analysis and working our way down to what could actually be supported and appropriate. So the hydrogeological study and the geotechnical study both supported the provision of a septic system and the creation of the 4 lots that are proposed. And the house size and things like that will have to be done accordingly to suit that.
Last question. So directly behind that, is that, what zoning is that? Is that agricultural, or is that
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe the lots directly behind it are actually owned by East Sword Tavistock, and it forms part of their stormwater management facility and operations.
Okay, I remember when that went in. Okay, thank you.
Yes, those lands are non-developable.
Okay, anyone else with questions? Seeing no more questions, council will consider a resolution regarding the plan and report recommendation following conclusion of the public meeting. Bylaw 223-2024 to implement the approval of the zoning application will be considered later within the council agenda. The public meeting is now concluded and we will continue with the regular meeting of council. Okay, so the first public meeting that we had, we do have a motion for it, and the motion is that the Township of Perth East Council received the report dated March 18, 2025, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z19-2024, submitted by Gospel Echoes Team, care of Gary Martin, affecting lands described as Lot 16, Concession 7, Mornington Ward, municipally known as 4082, Perth Line 72, for information, and that council held a statutory public meeting pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment Z19-2024, and that council approved zoning bylaw amendment 219-2024, submitted by Gospel Echoes Team, care of Gary Martin, affecting lands described as Lot 16, Concession 7, Mornington Ward, municipally known as 4082, Perth Line 72. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Jeremy, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. The second public meeting that we held was for Road Farm Drainage. And we have a motion that Township of Perth East receive the report dated March 18, 2025, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z22-2024, submitted by MHBC Planning on behalf of Road Farm Services, Inc., affecting lands described as Part Lot 4, Concession 7, Ellis Ward, Township of Perth East, municipally known as 4150, line 42, for information, and that council held a statutory public meeting pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to zoning bylaw amendment Z22-2024, and that council received comments from the public for consideration regarding zoning bylaw amendment 222-2024, affecting lands described as Part Lot 4, Concession 7, Ellis Ward, Township of Perth East. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. And the third public meeting was for Amy Otto on behalf of, and by Scott Patterson, and the motion is the Township of Perth East Council received a report dated March 18, 2025, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z23-2024, submitted by Patterson Planning Consultants on behalf of Amy Otto, affecting lands described as Part Lot 21, Lot H, Concession 5, Plan 329, Southeast Hope Ward, Township of Perth East, municipally known as 3584, Road 107, for information. The council held a statutory public meeting pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment Z23-2024, and that council approved zoning bylaw amendment 223-2024, submitted by Patterson Planning Consultants on behalf of Amy Otto, affecting lands described as Part Lot 21, Lot H, Concession 5, Plan 329, Southeast Hope Ward, Township of Perth East, municipally known as 3584, Road 107. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Bob, second by Amanda. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, so I appreciate all the work that's gone into these huge reports and by planning staff. I think a lot of the mechanicals are there to let this make sense. A little concerned about, you know, that we, and it's part of the process that we never see, you know, what's going to be put there. That's always a big concern of how it's actually going to fit. There's no conceptual drawings, there's no AI generated, whatever. And my biggest concern is that with that, it's an HVR. It's not a settlement area, like a partially service settlement area. It's not a settlement area. It's a hamlet village residential area. So I'm concerned about what signal this sends to development out in Perth East about what Millbank, Stephenville, all the other small settlement areas may be in store for it if this goes forward with this. My opinion, and my calculator says that three lots would actually be also a request for a what are we doing here? A zoning bylaw amendment, so we're going one above that. We heard the, obviously, so planning's nodding their head, so I understand the intensification. There's an old house there. I just think that the signal is not correct, so I'm not gonna be able to support it at four homes.
Right now, we're dealing just with the zoning only, not with we have the consent under the planning report will be when we decide if we're gonna allow the lots to be divided.
Sorry, clarification?
Is that correct?
Yeah, through the mayor, we're going to deal with the consent applications next. The importance of the zoning is that they're proposing lot sizes down to allow for 4 lots to be created, right? So you're kind of looking at it as a whole. You're about to deal with the consent application next. I'll do a short presentation on that and the conditions attached to that. But it is different applications. We're just dealing with the zone change first.
Sorry, so to confirm, this isn't splitting it up into 4 lots, it's consolidating it into 1 lot?
Through the mayor. So this isn't involved in the severance of the severance applications yet. We're going to deal with it all tonight. So next you're going to hear a presentation for the consent applications, which are severances with conditions. One of those conditions of the severance is that they complete the zone change. The way that we've dealt with it tonight is we've dealt with the zone change first because it's a public meeting, and we're going forward with the recommendation on the zone change, which will be a condition of the consents, which are coming up. So you should be looking at them as a whole because you might not want to approve a zoning with lot frontages that allow for 4 lots to be created if you're of the opinion that you don't feel that 4 lots should be created on that parcel of land.
So the special HVR 55 just does exactly what? Sorry.
It's to allow for the zoning of the property with those reduced lot frontages and the reduced lot area. If the zoning doesn't pass, they cannot create lots or lots on that property because the zoning will not allow you to have those reduced lot frontages that they're trying to create and the reduced lot area that they're trying to create.
Okay, so I'm hearing that what's in front of us will allow the next step to happen, which is the lot creation. Yeah, I'm still in the same place. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, now we're moving down to reports, and the first one is a planning. Under planning, we have an application for consent. So Jeff, floor is yours.
Thank you. So again, this property is located on west side of Road 107 between line 29 and Dietrich Road. And the purpose is to create 3 residential lots and to retain 1 lot for residential purposes, which gives you a total of 4 lots on the property. The property is designated as hamlet in the County of Perth official plan, and again, it is zoned as HVR, and there's a zone change application that you just heard to allow for changes to allow for the reduced lot frontage and the reduced lot area. Public notice was provided to the neighboring property owners on February 3rd. I've mentioned the comments from Hydro One and Upper Thames not having any concerns. Oxford County wants to ensure that an official plan amendment would be applied for and received from them in order to allow water connections. And Perth County Public Works have provided comments related to not needing a traffic impact study and that it doesn't impact traffic operations in the area. And again, 3 neighboring property owners have expressed concerns with proposed development. Those concerns are with the traffic and safety impacts with additional costs to extend public services, septic system capacity, increases to property taxes, parking overflow, and snow removal. I've addressed each of those concerns and comments with the zone change report. Those are I'd have the same analysis with the consent application and is included in the report that's before you. The proposed enhanced tertiary system is able to support the proposed severances. The development is considered to be infilling in the settlement area, and the lot size, frontage, and depth is consistent with lots in the immediate area. Lot plans have frontage on a public street, and proposed lots meet all other zoning bylaw requirements. Lot fabric represents lot sizes that are consistent with lots in the immediate area and supportable by the County of Perth official plan policies. Following the completion of the planning report, planning staff have discussed the proposed conditions with applicant and township staff. has been determined with those discussions that the included condition number 5 for each application is not necessarily required. The condition references a requirement for a development agreement with the Township of Perth East to provide a requirement for that development agreement for servicing financial securities and driveway permit entrances. So planning staff have listened to those concerns. We're suggesting that it may be appropriate to remove condition number 5 and replace it with a condition that is to be satisfied by the County of Perth. That condition would read that confirmation be received from the County of Oxford that all financial requirements of the County of Oxford with respect to the provision of water services to the subject property have been complied with. That condition will ensure that securities for the intended water connection will be provided prior to any lots being created, and planning staff are supportive of the proposed severance applications, subject to the recommended conditions of consent approval being fulfilled. Again, I'm available to answer any questions.
Questions of the report? Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't involved obviously in the comments from the local residents, and I haven't spoken to any, but the planning feel that everything's been addressed? Is there any outstanding items that could be worked on?
Through the mayor, in our opinion, I think we've addressed each of those comments in the report. We've provided an analysis on it, and we're comfortable with the recommendation moving forward with those consent applications as a result of that.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions of the report? If not, we have 3 resolutions because we have 3 separate lots that we're going to do, so we're going to do each one separately. Okay, so the first one is that the Township of Perth East Council advise the Land Division Committee or its delegated authority that the Township of Perth East supports the application files B60-2024, or excuse me, B60-24 submitted by Patterson Planning Consultants for lands described as Part Lot 21, Lot H, Concession 5, Plan 329, Southeast Hope Ward, Township of Perth East, subject to the following conditions. So in Perth East, we have 6 conditions, and I will give you the abbreviated version. So the Perth East conditions, number 1 is that a letter is provided by the clerk of the Township of Perth East advising the Secretary Treasurer of the Land Division Committee that all the requirements of financial services and otherwise have been compiled with. Number 2, that they provide cash in lieu of parkland to the satisfaction of the township. Number 3, confirmation be received that the apportionment schedule for municipal drains in the area be reviewed and updated. Number 4, confirmation be received that the severed and retained lots each have assigned separate municipal addresses and signs. 5, confirmation that the land be retained and the lands to be severed have been appropriately rezoned. And number 6, the existing building on the lot to be severed be removed subject to building permits for demolition to the satisfaction of the township. And then the county, they have 5 conditions, and these are their 5. Number 1, confirmation be received from the solicitor that the certificate of the official be scanned and attached to the electronic registration of the transfer. The second one, confirmation that the road access to the severed and retained parcels are to their satisfaction. The third one, confirmation received from County of Oxford that an official plan amendment has been completed for the lands to be retained and the lands to be severed to allow for water service conditions. Number 4, Land Division Committee be provided with description that is consistent with the application and equal to that required for registration of the deed/transfer. And number 5, confirmation be received from the County of Oxford that all financial requirements of the County of Oxford with respect to provision of water services to the subject property have been compiled with. So I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Jerry, second by Jeremy. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The second lot is that the Township of Perth East advise the Land Division Committee or its delegated authority that the Township of Perth East supports application file B61-24 submitted by Patterson Planning Consultants for land described as Part Lot 21, Lot H, Concession 5, Plan 329, Southeast Hope Ward, Township of Perth East, subject to the following conditions. For B61-2024 for Township of Perth East, we have 6 conditions. And they are number one, that a letter is provided by the clerk from the township advising the secretary treasurer of the land division committee that all the requirements for financial services and otherwise have been compiled with. Number two, that the owner provide cash in lieu of parkland to the satisfaction of the township. Number three, confirmation be received, the apportionment schedule for municipal drains in the area be reviewed and updated. Four, confirmation that the severed and retained lots have been assigned separate municipal addresses and signs. Number five, confirmation that the lands to be retained and the lands to be severed have been appropriately rezoned. And number six, the existing buildings on the lot be be removed, subject to the building permits for demolition to the satisfaction of the township. And the county again has 5 conditions, and they are: number one, that confirmation be received from the solicitor that certificate of the official be scanned and attached to the electronic registration of the transfer. Number two, confirmation that the road access to the severed and retained parcels are to their satisfaction. Number three, confirmation that the County of Oxford, that the official plan amendment has completed for the lands to retained and the lands to be severed to allow for water service connections. Four, land division committee be provided with a description that is consistent with the application and equal to that required for registration of the deed/transfer. And number five, confirmation from the County of Oxford that all financial requirements from the County of Oxford with respect to provision of water services to the subject property have been compiled with. Need a mover and a seconder for that lot. Moved by Amanda, second by Bob. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the third one is the Township of Perth East Council advise the Land Division Committee or its delegated authority that the Township of Perth East supports application file B04-2025 submitted by Patterson Planning Consultants for land described as Part Lot 21, Lot 8, Concession 5, Plan 329, Southeast Toe Ford, Township of Perth East, subject to the following conditions. Perth East has 5 conditions. They are: number one, the letter is provided by the clerk of the township advising the secretary of the Land Division Committee that all the requirements for financial services and otherwise have been compiled with. Number two, that the owner provide cash in lieu for parkland. Number three, confirmation be received from the township that the apportionment schedule for municipal drains in the area are reviewed and updated. Four, confirmation that the severed and retained lots have been assigned separate municipal addresses and signs. And five, confirmation that the lands to be retained and the lands to be severed have been appropriately rezoned. Perth County has 5 conditions, and they are as follows. Number one, confirmation be received from the solicitor that the certificate of the official be scanned and attached to the electronic registration of the transfer. Number two, confirmation that the road access to the severed and retained parcels are to their satisfaction. Number three, confirmation from the County of Oxford that the official plan amendment has been completed for the lands and be retained and the lands to be severed to allow for water service connections. Four, that the Land Division Committee be provided with a description that is consistent with the application and equal to that required for registration of a deed/transfer. Number five, confirmation be received from the County of Oxford all financial requirements of the County of Oxford with respect to provision of water services to the subject property have been compiled with. We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Amanda, second by Jerry. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, under CIO, we have a report under kite fighting, so Mike, the floor is yours.
All right, Mayor, Fonda, we're giving you a break from reading for a little bit. Yeah, as it relates to the reports, until this was referred by council, I had no idea what kite fighting was, so it's educational if nothing else, but I think the report is pretty straightforward. There are some municipalities, Oakville, Orangeville, and Toronto, who are taking a look at kite fighting and basically contemplating or past bylaws prohibiting. Mississauga and Toronto have taken similar but different approaches as it relates to the prohibition of the kite fighting. We've only really heard about one potential incident in North Halton and Wellesley, and I think Wellesley is also considered a bylaw going forward or a report to council consistent with what we have. I don't believe it's a prominent issue currently in Perth East, so council saw fit we can be proactive. The one thing I would comment as it relates to kite fighting, I think this is obvious, but perhaps not. kite fighting is going to be kind of a transient opportunity. So in terms of prohibiting it, because that would be educational, that we would make that aware, it would be very difficult to lay fines on somebody that, unless we caught them in the act of kite fight. So from an enforcement standpoint, it would be extremely challenging, but I think that's fairly enhanced. So yeah, the information's there in the reports. We requested to do information. My recommendation at this point is that we are prepared if it becomes an issue within Perth East, we can revisit it with an actual bylaw to prohibit. But certainly if council wants to take that approach now, that should be staff and we would come back.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Jeremy?
Can we, at the very least, just not allow it at our municipal facilities? Like, we have large green spaces that we rent out. Is there a lot of work involved with just saying we're not gonna rent it out to a kite flying group? Because that kind of makes us complicit with the whole act of it. I don't know if Becky's not here tonight, but I don't know if Becky has an idea about just working that into a rental contract of one of our fields or something where we wouldn't allow that type of use.
Yes, certainly council has the authority, which cover in the report itself. So even pass a bylaw. The draft bylaws that we've seen are prohibiting it on public and private property. We could certainly scope that to just be public property, publicly owned property, or we could look at it as it relates to agreements themselves. I don't want to go up the comments, but I don't think somebody is going to disclose that they're kite fighting with the public. But I may be wrong. I think for the most part, this is something that happens under the guise of not being fun.
Okay, other questions? Andrew?
Thank you, Margaret. I'm just wondering, I see in here prohibiting kite fighting on private property. I'm wondering if that's been tested yet, or when you were looking through this, it seems kind of like someone wants to stand in the middle of their field and fly a kite. I don't know. Right?
Yeah, the Provincial Offences Act is where the authority as it relates to the fine piece would come into play, Councillor. So at this point, no, there has not, to my knowledge, been a fine actually applied related to it, and I don't think it's been tested for it yet.
Yeah, sorry. It's just more the private property aspect. I can definitely see municipal and public stuff, but private property, I guess that's just opening up a can of worms.
We do have the authority under the act to pass a bylaw that would prohibit it on both public and private.
Okay, other questions or comments? If not, we do have a motion, and the motion is that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the Chief Administrative Officer dated March 18, 2025, entitled Kite Fighting for Information. Made a move with the seconder, moved by Hugh, second by Bob. All in favor? Okay, the next under clerk, we have requests for variation of assessment schedule. Ashley?
Okay, thanks, Margaret. So this is a request that is initiated by the township. So we've received notice that there is water backing up in one of our newer subdivisions in Newton, the stormwater ponds that we have including the drain. So after the public works manager and I have looked into it, there hasn't been a clean out along that drain in several years from what we can find. And we also spoke with our drainage superintendent as well. So earlier on in the agenda, there was a section 74 request under the consent items. And that was initiated by the public works manager to have the drain cleared out to avoid future backup. This year was an exceptional year with the water, as everyone's aware, from the snow. So in order for us to then appropriately bill out the works for the drain, we need to update the assessment schedules. That's where the section 76 request comes into play. The current report that we can find is back from 1982. So the subdivision that was installed and developed in 1993 wasn't captured in the Hawthorne Drain report. So all of those properties are not currently assessed and should be properly assessed. We are looking for tonight, and we're looking to appoint District Engineering Limited. They are the drainage superintendents. Will be looking after the work for this Section 74 request. That's why we recommended to use them for the Section 74. Questions, if there's any?
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the report? If not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the Manager of Legislative Services / Municipal Clerk dated March 18, 2025, entitled Request for Variation of Assessment Schedule, Hawthorne Municipal Drain, CLE-2025-09 for information, and further that in accordance with Section 76 of the Drainage Act, the Council of the Township of Perth East appoint the firm Dietrich Engineering Limited to prepare a new maintenance assessment schedule for the Hawthorne Municipal Drain. Moved by Andrew, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we're going to finance next, and first up we have is our annual council remuneration and expenses. Paula?
Thank you, Mayor Agates. Before council tonight is the 2024 annual report on council remuneration and expenses. Attached to the report is the schedule summarizing the various expenses totaling $179,936 for 2024. This amount is under budget. And I just wanted to note there was a 2023 training that was hosted by the county that we didn't get invoiced until 2024. So there's 3 individuals, the Mayor Agates, Councillor McAlpine, and Councillor McMillan attended this training. So there's $274.75 included under their conference expense column relating to 2023. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Questions of the report? No questions? I mean, we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the revised report prepared by the Manager of Financial Services / Treasurer dated March 18, 2025, entitled Annual Council Remuneration and Expense Report, FIN-2025-06 for information. Moved by Jerry, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. The next one is Development Charges Reserve Funds. Paula?
So the annual 2024 Development Charges Reserve Fund statement is included in the package tonight before council. And I just wanted to note in 2024, development charges were collected for 18 single or semi-detached homes, as well as 59,788 square feet of non-residential. The total development charges at the end of December 31st, 2024 totaled $818,855. There were exemptions in 2024 in the amount of $1,874,563. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the report? You?
Paula, on some of them it says like 2021 to 2030 net funding envelope. It says a certain amount of money. I'm looking at the one on page 663, and then it says reserve fund balance. So I'm assuming that if you look at it, it shows that you're spending all that money through that time. But during that time, will we not be taking money in? So that would be adding back into money coming out. And is there a particular reason why there's end dates on a lot of these? Like why they wouldn't be just continuous?
Through Mayor Agates, these schedules are attached from the development study, which are the proposed growth projects that are proposed to be funded through the development charges that are being collected. And the timelines are just the estimated of when those will come forward for funding. And yes, you are correct, there are revenues collected, but these are the projects that are scheduled for funding from that.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Development Charges Reserve Funds -2024 Annual Report FIN -2025-07 prepared by the Manager of Financial Services Treasurer dated March 18, 2025 for information. Moved by Amanda, second by Bob, all in favor? Carried. And the third report is the Parkland Reserve Fund. Paula?
Thank you, Mayor Agates. Final report for finance tonight is the Parkland Reserve Fund summary from 2024. And for council's information, there was $4,500 received in revenue for the Parkland reserves. There was interest earned on the reserve fund in $9,378. As well as in 2024, the budget included $50,000 to be spent on the Newton Park playground equipment. That full amount wasn't required, and there was only $42,845 withdrawn from the fund. The ending balance at the end of December 31st, 2024 for Parkland Reserve is $100,594. And just to date, there's been approximately $593,683 spent on various projects from the fund since 2003. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thanks, Paula. Any questions of the report? You?
Yeah, follow up on page 676. The chart at the bottom that shows Milverton, Warrington, Southeast Oak, Dallas, and Corporate. So that's for the month. So we take Milverton right at the top. So out of our funds, we spent 113,000.
That's correct.
So that's how much has been spent in each place.
Yeah.
And Lucky Stoke's gonna have to pick up the boots here. Nothing. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report titled Parkland Reserve Fund 2024 Annual Report prepared by the Manager of Financial Services Treasurer dated March 18, 2025 for information. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh, all in favor? Carried. Okay, we're going to move now to Public Works, and the first one is the Annual Drinking Water System Report. Jake?
Thanks, Mayor Agates. The first report tonight covers, as you said, the annual drinking water system reports for both Shakespeare and Milverton. As council is aware, it's a legislative requirement to bring these to council each year. The first item I wanted to touch on tonight, which was within the report, we faced some challenges in 2024 relating to bacteriological samples. We had a total of 3 hits in Milverton and 8 in Shakespeare. This is very uncharacteristic of both systems, especially given that the raw water composition didn't change over time. And we're actually reading basically zeros going into the system, so somewhat of a head scratcher. These TC hits were occurring kind of sporadically within both systems, and in some cases at the same time with different operators. We reviewed all of our sampling procedures, made sure those were meeting the requirements. They were. We couldn't make any changes there. We even went as far as ordering new bottles from the lab to try and eliminate that from the equation. And ultimately we got another adverse, so we elected to change labs at that point in time. And since then we have not received a single adverse since July. So somewhat, again, somewhat of a head scratcher. So there's no way of really proving where those issues came from, unfortunately. But staff are of the opinion there was some contamination going on somewhere in the chain. Next, in 2024, the ministry conducted inspections on both systems. Township received ratings of 97 and 94% for Shakespeare and Milverton respectively. There was one minor non-compliance with applicable to both systems relating to the tolerance for chlorine analyzer adjustments. That was rectified the day of the inspection by updating our SOPs. The Milverton drinking water system had a separate non-compliance relating to the integrity of well 4. Just to give you a bit of a background on how we got to this point, in 2022, the well was inspected by video in accordance with the township's well inspection and maintenance plan. This inspection led to the recommendation for rehabilitation. In 2023, Hopper was brought in to carry out the rehab and also inspect following that rehabilitation. Based on the report produced by Hopper, it was ultimately determined the well should be replaced in the next 5 years. Staff then inserted this into the water forecast for 2026 replacement. However, in 2024, the ministry inspector reviewed that Hopper report and ultimately formed the opinion that the well no longer met legislation as is. So through this review, it was further recommended that the well be replaced as soon as possible. Staff had Hopper take a look at the report. We had a hydrogeologist conduct an assessment of the well based on the recommendation by the ministry inspector. Hopper took this report and looked at the feasibility of replacing the well casing. It was their opinion at the end that replacement of a new well as opposed to replacing the casing was the preferred approach. And based on their preliminary review, they think it can be done cheaper with far less risk. At this time, we're continuing to look at all options for the replacement and would suggest a follow-up report be brought to a future council meeting. At that time, staff can present potential next steps for the replacement, allowing council to make a more informed decision for well 4. If there are any questions, I will try and answer.
Okay, thanks, Jake. Questions of the report? You?
Yeah, Jake, what's the number for arsenic again if we've got to be below?
It's 0.1 milligrams per liter, I believe.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Okay.
If you're gonna, I'm sure you're gonna drill a new well and stuff like that, maybe kind of scoped out any areas that might be.
I have looked at a couple of options. Now, there's a fairly significant consideration when we look at where these wells could be drilled. If we drill at a new location, we have to go through the EA process. And I've inquired around cost. We'd be looking at around $250,000 just for an EA. Now, if we elected to put a well at our existing property, at the well house here in town, we wouldn't have to go through that process. So at this point, that's kind of the preferred alternative from a cost and timing standpoint. But certainly we're going to look to explore all options when we come back with the report.
And just one other question, like I know you have reservoirs and I know there used to be a tower here in town. Is it still, obviously the reservoirs, that's still a cheaper way to go than the tower? I know people say that the tower is better, it's got better pressure and keeps everything clean.
I couldn't honestly have a comparison for you from a reservoir to a water tower. There's certain benefits to both, obviously, from an aesthetics standpoint. and also functionality. But yeah, there is at this point a minor, I guess, gap in the amount of storage we have in town here. So that's something we're looking at through the master plan process, looking at what we could do for future storage requirements. And that might get considered kind of at the same time as a potential well, a new well rather. So all things we're looking at.
And you'd just be looking at one new well.
At this point, yes. We would want to have a fully redundant system, and at this point, we don't have that with well 4 in the state it is. So in the effort of moving things as quick as possible, at this point, we haven't been informed that we need an additional well, but that will get looked at again through the master plan review.
Thanks.
Any other questions, Andrew?
Thank you, Mary. Sorry, this would have been an easier email, but I need to ask just a couple quick questions. Obviously, everything looks great. It's good, which is the important part. No, with well 4, just discussing that, I thought I read in the report, how old is that well?
It's, if I'm not mistaken, it's from 1962. So it was planned for replacement shortly. Just maybe got there a bit sooner than our asset management forecast.
Is that a
projected.
typical life expectancy, or?
I think in accordance with our policy around asset replacement, I think it spells out with 75 years, if I'm not mistaken. I would gather there would have been some review put into that before that number was established, but I can't speak to what our wells have done historically.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Sounds like the original.
It's got to be one of the originals. I know there was a well 5 that's been decommissioned since. Well 6 is obviously quite new relative, so it was a matter of time, unfortunately.
One other quick question, sorry. As far as testing, I thought I read in the report somewhere something about upstream, downstream, and point of entry. So where do we test? Do we test it raw water after whatever filtration, and then remote point during the loop? I haven't picked up on that in the past.
Yeah, good question. So when we get an adverse sample come in, the response is to sample at the source of the adverse, one sample upstream and one sample downstream. So you kind of your closest options. We try to sometimes use even private property for that, like with the request, obviously going to that homeowner, or any of our blow-offs through the system. We can use those for upstream, downstream.
So in the pump house, it's a regular water testing sample that gets sent wherever. Is it raw water you're testing, or is it after whatever pumps and all that, or is it both? Or?
Both,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So we sample raw weekly for both wells, and then also through the distribution.
And that's in the report, the difference, or is it a?
You know what? I
Just
don't know
curious.
if it spells that out, the locations within the report or
No,
not.
I mean, it's the values.
Yes, at least the range of the values is.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive a report entitled 2024 Annual Drinking Water System Reports, PUB-2025-06, dated March 18, 2025, prepared by the Manager of Public Works for information, and further that council direct staff to prepare a follow-up report regarding the next steps for the replacement of well number 4 being part of the Milverton drinking water system at a subsequent regular meeting of council. Need a mover and a seconder, moved by Amanda, second by Jeremy. All in favor? Carried. Okay, the next report is the annual wastewater system. Jake?
Thanks again, Mayor Riggets. This report is similar in nature to the last one. This, however, is not a legislative requirement to bring in front of council, but I do think it's important for council to be aware of the state of our facilities. Generally speaking, both systems met the effluent limits in 2024. There were, however, some exceedances. Specific to Shakespeare, I just wanted to touch on some of the issues we're facing down there. And without a doubt, the biggest issue is that of infiltration and inflow, or better known as I&I. Basically, every time we get a significant rainfall, we're seeing a huge uptick in flows coming into the plant. That in order for our plant to keep pace, it has to accelerate the treatment process, which ultimately can lead to increased effluent concentrations. The plant itself is pretty sensitive to variations in the operating conditions, and these impacts often last longer than the precipitation events themselves. So the plant takes a moment to get itself back into balance, so to speak. That said, it's pretty evident that I&I is a problem in Shakespeare. This kind of reinforces the urgency of conducting that I&I study. We do have that in the budget for 2025, and staff have initiated that process. The starting step at this point is to update our sewer use bylaw, and from there, we'll look to put this out for tender. If there are any questions, I'll try and answer.
Okay, questions? Andrew?
Thank you, Mary. So do we send a robot in to see if there's like a break in the pipe? Is that basically what's gonna happen, or?
Believe it or not, more or less, we'll be looking to do more than just video inspection, but CCTV would be part of that process. And then we'd be looking at some flow monitoring, determining, where we're seeing more increased flows. And there's other measures like smoke testing that can be done to identify small cracks and breaks. So there's a wide range of things that are considered in that study.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Bob?
It is somewhat concerning given that the system isn't that old. What number now? It was funding 2009, I think. Around there. So it is concerning with administration is a problem. Hey, what would be the rectification of that? You're gonna line the pipes, or it's a more severe problem?
At this point, to Councillor McMillan, we don't really know the major source of that I&I. I anticipate the pipe should be in good condition. There should be no reason those are failing. Don't hold me to that, but I do think you have some other options of where or potential of where water is getting in through structures. You could just look at resealing, purging, that sort of thing to eliminate some water from getting into the system. And then another side of the story would be the inflow from private residences. We suspect there's a bit of that going on in Shakespeare, with some pumps and such being connected into our system. So in time, we'll figure out the source, but I'm hoping no major construction will be required for anything there.
Okay, other questions? If not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the Manager of Public Works dated March 18, 2025, entitled 2024 Annual Wastewater System Report, PUB 2025-07 for information. Moved by Jeremy, second by Andrew, all in favor? Carried. Okay, and the next report is on Pew Street and St. Mary's Street intersection, Jake?
I think what's up on the screen is not correct there at the moment, Matthew.
No, that's the parade route.
A little early, Matthew.
Yeah.
Report 3 tonight covers response to some correspondence that was received back in February regarding the intersection of Pew Street and St. Mary's here in Milverton. To provide a bit of background, this intersection initially had stop controls for southbound traffic on St. Mary's as well as westbound traffic on Pew. This left eastbound traffic without a control measure. At that point, due to sightline considerations at the northwest corner of St. Mary's and Pew, there's a hill as well as some trees that do impact sightlines. On that basis, it was determined to create an all-way stop intersection. And staff believe that that assessment was accurate and would not recommend removal of any stop signs at this point. Within the correspondence, there was reference made to concerns of speed on this section of road as well. Staff decided to collect some data on Pew between Arena and St. Mary's to provide a better understanding of the usage. We collected data for 8 days, and it was pretty consistent throughout. We had an average of 41 kilometers an hour, well under the 50 kilometer an hour speed limit. So staff feel that speed is not a significant concern as it relates to this intersection. And we didn't explore any control measures for speed, and rather just looked at the control measures at the intersection. Staff would be of the opinion that the most feasible approach to improving the control at that intersection would be to implement stop bars and or increase the size of those stop signs. This would really just visually highlight the need to stop and where to stop for vehicles. I would, however, use some caution around making decisions about individual intersections. There's a lot of intersections within Perth East, and it can create a precedent for future inquiries. So I would just caution council on that. But the cost to implement these enhancements is in the report. If you did both, you'd be looking at just over $1,000. But lastly, I just wanted to speak to the primary concern of the correspondence, the issue of not stopping at that stop sign. It's a challenging one. I actually spoke with the gentleman who wrote the correspondence and observed several cars rolling through the intersection. But I don't believe that this is unique to that intersection by any means. Unfortunately, ultimately the OPP is the governing body and the only governing body that can actually enforce the Highway Traffic Act. So I would encourage and continue to encourage residents that note any of these infractions to continue calling the OPP. We can't, through our own bylaw, enforce any of that stuff. So if there are any questions with this one, I will try and answer those.
Okay, thanks, Jake. Questions of the report, Jerry?
No questions. Yeah, thanks, Jake and Stephen up for all the work they've done on not only this intersection, but all across the township. It is ultimately up to the driver. We all know that. Well, I don't think we want to spend any money on it. Sickening, because somebody's going to get hurt or if not killed at some point. So many people rolling through it. Again, encourage the residents to call, note times. Sometimes it's the same vehicle. No, I get it. Thanks. Everything you've done for this on all the intersection stop signs, I'm assuming this report will be mailed to Mr. Volmer. Again, thanks. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Amanda?
Just more so a comment. I think, Jake, your response was so helpful in terms of like a communication standpoint that really we should probably take time to put out on our social channels that the OPP is the only governing body that can enforce the Highway Traffic Act. The Council of the Township of Perth East really can't do much in terms of from a bylaw perspective. The amount of people that the course of my time on council and even during the election period this was brought up numerous times because I know people are really concerned from a safety perspective, and I am too. I share their concerns, like Counselor Smith and others around this chamber. But that detail, the way you delivered that, explain that, I think is so important, and reiterating that people need to be contacting the non-emergency number. So I just would suggest and encourage council, not council, staff to perhaps take that time to maybe get that message out on our social channels. I think from a public education perspective, I think that is really helpful, and that's something we can point to as counselors and refer to people. So it's just more of a comment, and I've never heard it so eloquently explained. That was really good.
Okay, anyone else? Jeremy?
I think in a way we created the real issue that was occurring here was people going through the stop sign. We kind of created that issue by putting the stop sign there to calm the traffic and slow it down, which has been achieved based on the report. I would like to spend $1,000. Like those sight lines coming over top of that hill are not great. Also coming up a couple of the other two side streets, you have trees in the way of seeing those stop signs. I would like us to see us spend at least $1,000 to implement those measures at the very least. And also, speeding might not be a problem, but that flashing sign that tells you what your speed is definitely prepares you to slow down and stop. So I'd like to see our speed sign put there for a period of time as well.
Okay, anyone else? So I do have a motion here. They want something different. I'll read what I have and we'll go from there. Council of the Township of Perth East received a report entitled Pew Street and St. Mary Street Intersection Review, PUB-202505, dated March 18, 2025, prepared by the Manager of Public Works for information. Jeremy?
With an amendment to it, just to add the stop bars on the streets and increase the size of the stop signs.
Okay, so you're going to move that. Do we have a seconder? Andrew? Any more comments or questions? Bob?
Well, as Jake alluded to, if you're gonna treat this intersection special, then you may as well start to do it with everyone. I'm not resident of Milverton, but I could identify other intersections that have far worse traffic patterns than this. An example I'd use is the arena. It's a four-way stop at Wilford and Temperance. I don't think anybody has ever stopped at any of those signs. It's always a rolling stop, right? Pretty typical of any side street, right? So I don't think throwing a larger sign or putting stop bars is really going to change, Jerry alluded to, the driving habits of the public. Go to Shakespeare and traveling on 107. Miller Ave seems to be another street that nobody seems to pay attention to the stop sign. It's always a rolling stop, right? So where do you start and where do you stop? And if you're going to do it for one, then I guess you may as well start to do it for everyone, right?
Okay, anyone else? So then the motion is to receive for information and to proceed with the with stop signs and a larger stop sign and stop bar. Okay, everyone clear? All those in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Do we need any? Okay, so then we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Pew Street and St. Mary Street Intersection Review, PUB-202505, dated March 18, 2025, prepared by the Manager of Public Works for information. Moved by Jerry, second by Bob. All in favor? Carried. Okay, Jake, one more, I think. Yep, Southeast Hope Landfill.
Okay, report for tonight. This one, I'll try and be brief. Basically, we've had some issues down at the landfill with our load cells failing. resulting in the replacement of those load cells. We've been in discussions with the professionals on the matter, and they've indicated to us that the wiring needs replaced as well as linkages, and that should prevent this from happening in the future. Quickly to note, last year we installed the grounding apparatus to ground the scale itself from issues with lightning strikes, believe it or not. It's their understanding that over the past several years, lightning has created some issues for the scale, leading to the breakdown of the wiring, etc. And additionally, if I'm not mistaken, it's from 1994, the scale, and nothing's been done since then. This should allow us to get several more years out of the scale. It's still in good condition. So, if there are any questions, I'll try and answer those.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the report? No questions. We have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Southeast Hope Landfill Scale Upgrades PUB-2025-08 dated March 18, 2025, prepared by the Manager of Public Works for information, and further that Council approve a capital budget amendment in the amount of $15,500 for scale upgrades at the Southeast Hope Landfill to be funded from the Landfill Scale Reserve. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we have no reports from building. We have none from parks, none from fire. We have 3 items of correspondence. The first one is from Deb Bell, and that's to do with their 78th annual Field Day and Fish Fry, and they're asking for a temporary road closure for that day. Does anyone have any questions on that? If not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the correspondence from Deb Bell, the Shakespeare and Community Athletic Association dated March 6, 2025 regarding a request for temporary road closure for the 78th annual Field Day and Fish Fry for information, and that Council approve the parade route for the 78th annual Field Day and Fish Fry beginning at Thompson Street, north on Galt Street, east on William Street, south on Byron Street, west on Andrew Street, north on Trochelle Street, west on Fraser, south on Galt, to ending at the Shakespeare Optimus Hall in the community of Shakespeare on Saturday, June 14, 2025, starting at 1 p.m. in accordance with to accommodate a parade sponsored by the Shakespeare and Community Athletic Association, and further that the event organizers provide sufficient volunteers necessary to control detoured/rerouted traffic, and further that the certificate of insurance state that the Corporation of the Township of Perth East and the County of Perth be added as additional insured, but only with respect to their interest in the operation of the name insured. We have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Andrew, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Okay, second item is from Samantha Lawson. She's the Chief Administrative Officer for the Grand River Conservation. This has to do with their annual report. Is there any questions on this? If not, we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the correspondence from Samantha Lawson, Chief Administrative Officer, Grand River Conservation Authority, GRCA, entitled Watershed Services 2024 Annual Report for Information. Moved by Jerry, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. And the third item is from Nancy Rolston, the Manager of Engineering for City of Stratford, and this has regards to Road of 111, and Mike has some information to give us.
Thanks. I just wanted to, we've included this information in the agenda. Council will recall back in January, there was a resolution passed for us to send follow-up correspondence. So we've sent that correspondence. The February 27th correspondence came back from City of Stratford and the reviewing. And I would suggest great feedback that we received as it relates to our concerns around Road 111. So based on this and the past resolution of council, basically giving staff direction to keep correspondence, I've drafted a further response, and just quickly as it relates to kind of the highlights, the response highlights the fact that the Planning Act dictates that the approval authority, in this case City of Stratford, for this plan of subdivision
asked to basically give consideration to the roads, the connecting roads. We don't believe they've done that. Further to that, our second major point is going back to the 2010 boundary adjustment agreement that some may remember and some may not, but within that agreement, kudos to Perth East at the time, there's clear wording that suggests that not only should the city of Stratford be contributing to annual maintenance costs of that section of 411, any capital upgrades would be solely with those costs. So we're going to highlight that for the city of Stratford again, because it may not have registered. Thirdly, we do have an entrance permit process, and based on the functional service review report that's done as it relates to the Plymouth subdivision, they're depicting flows coming towards Road 111, and that's contrary to our entrance permit bylaw, so we would not bring an entrance permit to them based on the current design. So I just wanted to update council and let them know that, yeah, there will be further correspondence sent back to the city of Stratford, and we will continue to remind them that impacts as it relates to Road 111 aren't just our concern, they're their concern.
Any questions, Hugh? No, he means on that, on their side. There's so many houses there along that they have. Yeah, they're in Stratford now.
Yeah.
Right to the railway, I believe, is it not?
Correct. Yeah. Just north of the rail, between the railway and yeah, so the basically you know, say Earl Street, so the street will curve to the north, so that more bearing straight a little bit, and then it will come. They're proposing to come to. This proposed subdivision would not have access to it.
Okay, anyone else? Bob?
Well, thanks for that clarification, Mike. Reading where you said that you had paragraph 5 that it says basically desired city staff to include in the draft conditions that the required damage clause be included subject to township approval. So I was hoping that perhaps this road apparently isn't in great shape according to their letter, by our comments, that we would have some sort of agreement that when it gets worse with all the construction traffic that they would fix it, right? Well, that's what the intent of that wording is, so pick them up. I mean, ultimately, I'd like to say you in the city of Stratford, and you should use city of Stratford streets and not access. That's not how that subdivision's designed.
Yeah, I think the intent around our position is that because there is limited access to the MTO controlled road, there's nowhere for those people to get in and out of Stratford. And I think we all know, and even there are going to be intersection improvements at 111 and Highway 78. The MTO proposed that, which will make that intersection better, and people will certainly use it to access Stratford. But lots of people, myself included, are always looking for a way into the city that isn't necessarily on a major road, and using Road 111 to the new Durrell Street will become commonplace. They've indicated to us that they believe that no trucks allowed and other traffic calming measures will reduce that impact. I'm plus fine.
One other thought was, I guess you could give them that portion of 111, and then they could look after it as they see fit. So if it needed upgrades, turning lane, whatever, that's their responsibility.
I think we're certainly open to that conversation.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the correspondence from Nancy Rolston, Manager of Engineering for the City of Stratford, response to Perth County regarding the traffic impact studies and functional servicing reports for the proposed draft plan of subdivision 31T 22-01, which is 3980 Road 111 for information. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Okay, we're moving to council and committee reports. You saw the mayor's meeting log at the last meeting. Is there any committee that anyone or board that anyone sits on that they'd like to give a report on? Jerry?
The library, okay, the library, the minutes were there. The RCA, we have the annual report there. The MBA, Melbourne Business Association, had its annual general meeting. And we have not the president's not new, but this term it's President Matheson again. And then they went over all the events for 2025. Doing a lot of events. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any? So a motion to receive the verbal report for information. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Okay, then we're down to bylaws. We have 4 bylaws that are to be read a first, second, third, and final time. We have zoning bylaw 219-2024, zoning bylaw amendment, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 30-1999, concession 7, lot 16, Mornington Ward, and that was item 7.1.1 tonight. The second one is zoning bylaw 223-2024, a zoning bylaw amendment, and it's a bylaw to amend bylaw 30-1999, and that's for part lot 21, lot H, concession 5, plan 329, Southeast Oak Ward, and that was item 7.1.3 tonight. The third one is bylaw 108-2025, Smith Municipal Drain, being a bylaw to collect final maintenance assessment. And the fourth one is bylaw 109-2024, the Mueller-Davidson Municipal Drain, being a bylaw to collect financial maintenance assessment.
Yeah, can I request please that 11.12 be pulled for separate consideration?
Okay, so we'll just do the 3 of them then. We'll take 11.1.2 out and do it separately. So a motion to accept the other 3 for first, second, third, and final reading. Moved by Amanda, second by Jeremy. All in favor? Carried. Give Ashley a chance to catch up here. Okay, so then we have the one bylaw, that was 11.1.2, and that had to do with item 7.1.3 tonight. Separately, do we have someone to move that? Moved by Jerry, second by Andrew. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, any notice of motions? Other business? Announcements? We don't have a closed session, right? Nope. Confirmatory bylaw. And that is that bylaw 15-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the Township of Perth East at its regular meeting held on March 18, 2025. Be read a first, second, and third time. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. And the last motion of the night is that we adjourn at 8:54. Moved by Amanda, second by Jeremy. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.